Two more horses came quietly out of the trees, one of them passing very close to Parvati, who shivered and pressed herself closer to the tree, saying, "I think I felt something. I think it's near me." "Don't worry, it won't hurt you," said Hagrid patiently. "Right now, who can tell me why some of you can see him and some can't?" Hermione raised her hand. "Go on, then." "The only people who can see Thestrals," she said, "are people who have seen death." "That's exactly right," said Hagrid solemnly. 10 points for Gryffindor. Now, Thestrals... Professor Umbridge had arrived. As you can see, I'm reading all Harry Potter books. I started them the day after Christmas. I'd gotten the first two as Christmas presents, and I am currently on Order of the Phoenix. Yeah, I'm going through them at a fairly rapid rate, although not as rapid as some. A friend of mine claims to have read all 7 books in just 9 days. I don't know why anyone would want to do that. Anyway, I'm enjoying them quite a bit, as you can probably tell. I wanted to make this video because, well, first of all, I wanted to remind everyone about the contest. If you haven't seen a lot of video responses for entries for my contest, that's because I have disallowed them, private messages only. But the link to that video where I explain the rules of the contest is in the description. And the deadline is Sunday, the 24th. It's Oscar night, so you probably want to get your entry in early in the day rather than late if you're watching the Oscars. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I'm doing so far. That is the point in which I've left off in this book right here, the point which I'd stopped reading yesterday. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the thoughts I've had about these. This is, of course, the first book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the film, I'd actually seen all the films when they were in the theater, but it's been a really long time since I've seen the first couple, especially these first two right here. Chamber of Secrets, came out in 2002. That was over 10 years ago now. When I saw the final film, Deathly Hallows Part 2, I didn't understand how the heck Neville could just suddenly pull a sword out of thin air to fight, Death Eaters with. But after reading the book, of course, I was reminded that that sword is the sword of Gryffindor, and that only a Gryffindor can retrieve it from the Sorting Hat, and Neville's a Gryffindor, so naturally he was able to do that. I am kind of curious about the Resurrection Stone, though. Resurrection Stone was found in the Snitch in the last film, and there was no explanation for why it was there, or why Harry Potter would even think to look inside the Snitch for the Resurrection Stone. And a friend of mine says, well, in the book they say that blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, all right, I'll read the books. I gather that the movies are not the ideal experience, the ideal way to experience these stories. They seem pretty much designed for fans, for the most part, sort of like highlights of the books, basically, in film form. So I felt kind of left out, especially the last few, when there was so much going on there that I just didn't understand. My favorite of the films is Order of the Phoenix. That's the only one that I own on DVD, and one of the few that I actually have seen more than twice. With when Order of the Phoenix was about to come out, I rewatched Goblet of Fire as sort of a refresher. And when HalfBlood Prince was about to come out, I rewatched Order of the Phoenix again, just as a refresher, just to remind myself what was happening. And I continued on that way until the last film had come out. Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets only saw one time, so it's been a really, really long time. I remember the basics of it. For example, Quirrell, what was going on with Quirrell in the first one. So sort of leading up to that. And it's been fun kind of reading and knowing a little, sort of general terms, exactly what is happening with each of the characters. Umbridge, for example, is actually a Death Eater. There's been no indication of that so far, other than the fact that she's just extremely evil, and approved the Slytherin Quidditch team to resume practicing and not Gryffindor, and had to be overridden by McGonagall, and then Umbridge breaks out the next of the Minister of Magic's decrees, saying that she would have final say over all punishments and what have you. Yeah, I just don't know how they can get away with it. If I was McGonagall, when I learned that, I would have taken a look at that slip and gone, this signature is quite illegible. I don't think Professor Fudge signed this at all. I don't think this is official. Nope, sorry, Professor Umbridge. And Professor Umbridge might go, I'm sure you'll find that Cornelius Fudge did sign that. And it's like, well, I tell you what, until Cornelius comes up here to Hogwarts and tells the staff in person that you have all this authority, see ya, Umbridge. But of course, she didn't do that. She follows the rules. It's amazing how many rules these guys follow, considering all the rules that they're willing to break, especially the students. I had some questions about some of the details in the books, and presumably they might be answered in later books. Yeah, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone I've just seen the one time in the theater, and the same with Chamber of Secrets. Prisoner of Azkaban is my favorite of the books. I think it's just a very, very, very well-crafted story. I love the way everything, comes together narratively. And it's also one of my favorite films as well. Aside from Order of the Phoenix, Azkaban is probably my favorite of the films. A Goblet of Fire, of course, this was a chore to finish. They're all really big now. The first 3 books are relatively mild as far as length goes. Now they're all really massive. The thing that really worked for me in this book was the lead up to the dragon challenge. The tension that Harry feels around having to face the dragon is really, really dealt with nicely. It's really, really tense. And the whole business at the end with Voldemort, that was pretty intense as well. I mean, I know what's happening basically generally in the stories, but still, it's very, very effective writing. The one issue that I have with this book and with Chamber of Secrets is the incredible amount of exposition that goes on at the end. This is the movie fan in me talking. And how you shouldn't have someone explain absolutely everything, taking hours and hours to explain all this stuff that's happened. In Chamber of Secrets, you've got Tom Riddle, who comes in some sort of non-corporeal form to terrorize Ginny and Harry, and he has this whole long explanation of how he was able to do this. But that's nothing compared to Goblet of Fire, because first you have Voldemort explaining everything that has happened to him up until this point to the Death Eaters, and by extension to Harry as well, and us. And then once Harry gets back to Hogwarts, he talks with the Mad-Eye Moody imposter, and Moody gives him this whole big explanation, and then of course they find out that he's actually Barty Crouch, and they give him the truth serum, and then he goes on an even longer explanation of everything that's happened with him over the past 12 years and being sent to Azkaban along with Bellatrix and all the other people. Yeah, just really, really, really a lot of long explanations. Everything has to be detailed and accounted for, including why Winky was up in the Triwizard box saving a seat. I mean, it all comes together, everything's explained really well, but man, it's just a lot of explanations going on here. And the movie fan in me is not as fond of that. I like exposition, actually. It gives the actors a chance to really just strut their stuff and just go on with big long monologues, but it can be a little tiring after a while, because you begin to go, okay, let's get on with the story here, rather than just explaining everything that's already happened. But I'm not complaining too much. They've been really exciting books so far. Now, I'm not really looking forward to HalfBlood Prince, because that is my least favorite film, but I presume it's a much more rewarding experience as a book, because it focuses more on, less on dealing with Death Eaters, and probably less with classes as well, more with how the students interacting with each other. There's a big romance element to HalfBlood Prince, as I remember. Ron and Harry both have, some misadventures there, I guess, or maybe, just plain old regular adventures. But once I finish Order of the Phoenix, of course, I'll be starting in on HalfBlood Prince and Deathly Hallows, and I guess you could say I'm more than halfway done, seeing as how I'm about halfway done with Order of the Phoenix. Let's see here. There's my bookmark there, so that's pretty much the halfway point. So yeah, a couple of questions about some of these things right here. I actually wrote a friend of mine who has read all the books and is a huge fan of the books, and so I figured that she would know about this stuff, but she hasn't gotten back to me, and so I wanted to pose a couple questions to you guys. Now, about Ron and Hermione pre-Hogwarts. At some point, did they ever get into what was going on with them before they got to Hogwarts? I mean, I assume that Hermione went to a Muggle school, but she never talks about any of the friends that she made there. You'd think she'd want to keep in touch with them. I found it kind of amusing that a lot of Muggles don't seem to know what a telephone is or how to use it, like the Weasleys, for example. But then, of course, comes the explanation towards the end of Goblet of Fire that electronic devices don't work at Hogwarts because of all the magic around. It's very convenient. That's why there's no electric lighting. That's why candles illuminate all the rooms and everything like that. You'd think they'd have to have a few electrical devices here and there, but apparently not. None of them can actually can work there. So that's convenient. But it just seems strange to me that some of these wizarding types would be so isolated from the rest of the Muggle world they wouldn't even know about telephones or things like that. And another thing, some of them don't even seem to know about Muggle weaponry. In Prisoner of Azkaban, the Daily Prophet talks about Sirius Black having escaped, and the explanation is that he's just an escaped convict and that he's armed and dangerous. He has a gun, and they actually go and explain what a gun is. A short wand that Muggles use to kill each other. That's their explanation. I'm just like, how is it possible that all these wizards, they've been, in the wizarding community for a long time, but they interact with the Muggle world. They don't know about gunpowder. They don't know about tanks and rockets and missiles and stuff like that. I mean, that just seems a bit of a stretch. I don't really understand what's going on there. And then there's I'm just wondering also what percentage of them are isolated completely from the Muggle world, if any, and how much of them actually interact with the Muggle world. Here's something interesting. None of the kids ever drink pop. No carbonated beverages at all. They drink 3 things. They drink butterbeer, pumpkin juice, and hot chocolate. Now, is butterbeer alcoholic? I mean, Winky drinks it and she gets drunk, right? And it just seems strange to me that they would have these kids drinking alcohol, some sort of intoxicating beverage. Also, pumpkin juice? That sounds terrible. Why do they drink so much of it, especially on a hot day? That sounds horrible. Hagrid has a booze. How come none of the troublemaker students ever want to, get wasted? Raid Hagrid's shack for a booze. That's a little odd. I know these are kids' books, but still, you'd think for the sake of realism that some of them would get hammered every once in a while. Now here's something. Now I was thinking that this is really sort of strange the way Rowling really sort of has it in for any of the Slytherin students. They all seem to be evil. They all seem to be malicious. Not to mention ugly. None of the Slytherin girls are pretty. But of course, over the course of the books, especially the last 2, have really gotten a strong sense of sort of the pure blood versus the mixed blood. It's a really strong sort of argument for interracial relationships and mixed ethnicity breeding and what have you, because all the Slytherins are pure blood and they're all very mean, and a lot of them are not very good looking. They seem to think that they're superior to everyone else, but man, those kids are horrible. Those Slytherin kids are just awful. Not a single good one among them, which is kind of disappointing. You think that some of them would be okay with mudbloods, as they say, but yeah, apparently not. Now Malfoy must realize that Harry Potter's a pure-blood wizard, and yet he rips on them. And I guess this is because of his father, because of his parents, because his father is a Death Eater, and so he is just, he knows that the Potters were not on their side, James and Lily, but still, you'd think that that he would be cool with him being a pure-blood wizard at the very least, but apparently not. He always makes fun of the Weasleys because, they're poor, and he makes fun of Hermione because she's not pure-blood wizard, but, his hatred of Harry seems to be purely in accordance with his father's wishes, his father's attitude, which is disappointing. It just seems odd that he would overlook the fact that he's a pureblood. Snape is really kind of strange. I know that Snape is a good guy, working with the good guys, working with the Order of the Phoenix, despite the fact that he has told Voldemort and the other Death Eaters that he's only pretending to be a good guy, but is in fact a bad guy, which is something that we learn in HalfBlood Prince, or maybe it's the last book, I'm not really sure, but HalfBlood Prince seems to insist that he is actually a bad guy, pretending to be a good guy. And when I saw the film, I was just like, come on, that's not true. He's actually a good guy. I have to, believe that he isn't really a bad guy. And I was proven right when, the last couple of films came out. But he's always favoring the Slytherin kids. You'd think that Dumbledore would discipline him or tell him to rein it in just a little bit. But he's not quite as bad as Umbridge, but still, he's always, favoring the Slytherin kids and always saying nasty things, especially to Hermione. That incident with her teeth, got Harry and Ron a big punishment because they were screaming at Snape for saying, horrible things about Hermione. Anyway, yeah, so I don't really understand why he hasn't been disciplined for his conduct as far as the Gryffindor and other students go. He's always favoring the Slytherins. Yeah, one more thing. In Prisoner of Azkaban, everyone thinks that Sirius Black has killed not only Peter Pettigrew, but also a bunch of muggles that were just bystanders. Now, it turns out Peter Pettigrew wasn't killed. He simply turned into a rat. And has spent the last 12 years as a rat prior to that story. Now, here's what I'm wondering. If that's the case, how did the Muggles get killed? Did Sirius Black kill them by accident? And if Peter Pettigrew left behind his own finger to make it look like he'd been killed, did he cut it off ahead of time? I mean, did he have a knife in his hand ready to cut off his own finger when Sirius Black was about to cast a spell on him and then turn into a rat at the last second after he'd cut off his finger? I just don't understand that at all, how that worked. Yeah, these are just a few details that bug me. Overall, I'm enjoying these quite a bit. I was just wondering, don't tell me what's going on with the Resurrection Stone. If you want to answer any of these questions that I'm posing here, you don't have to tell me what's going on with the Resurrection Stone, because I'm sure I'll find out once I read Deathly Hallows, and how it ended up in the Snitch. But all these other ones I'm kind of curious about. Yeah, it's been fun so far. It's been fun, and I'm planning on seeing someone who has read all the Harry Potter books and likes them a lot soon, and I'd like to finish the entire series before that happens so I can talk about it with her. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you found this interesting and entertaining. I still have, of course, books to finish, but I'll probably make another video on it once I finish Deathly Hallows. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again real soon. Bye. Oh, don't forget, enter the contest. The 24th, Sunday the 24th, that's the deadline. Bye.